Well, new data shows that Britain has seen a record spike in the number of religious and racial hate crimes since last year's Brexit vote. Police figures obtained through Freedom of Information requests show race and faith-based hate crimes soared at an unprecedented rate. In the months following the referendum, the incidents surged by 23% compared with the same period before the vote. 32 police forces in England and Wales responded to the FOI requests. 11 of the respondents said that reports of race and faith-based hate crimes increased by more than 40%, with several regions, including Gwent, Nottinghamshire, and Kent, climbing by more than half in a year. Faith groups and organizations representing foreign nationalities have called on the government to take urgent action to review its response to such reports. Investigative journalist Tony Gosling, joining us from Bristol, is here to offer us more insight on that story. Mr. Gosling, welcome to the program. What does this new data show?
Well, okay, from the people who actually responded, the police that responded, it's around about a quarter increase after the referendum vote last year in race hate crime. Now, some of that might be just a raising of awareness, so more people reporting crime, realizing that crime that wouldn't have previously been reported as race hate crime being reported, and actually the police saying that they wanted this crime reported. That actually might have increased it a little bit. But quite clearly, one of the reasons for this is because many of the people campaigning in that Brexit vote were racist. Some of them from the Brexit side, who have legitimate reasons, many of these people were hijacked by individual racists who they're characterised by not distinguishing between ordinary Muslims and fanatics. And that's one of the things that we've seen, for example, from the English Defence League, from parties like Britain First. These are neo-Nazi parties, by the way, and many would say, and many are calling in Britain now for these people to be classed as hate preachers. We've seen Abu Hamza, Abu Qatada, people like this being deported from Britain for hate preaching. But when you are trying to pretend that all Muslims are the same as some of the worst fanatics, some of whom, by the way, are managed and run and controlled by the Western intelligence services and have been ever since the war in Afghanistan and Operation Cyclone, that's when you start to get these kinds of attacks increasing. You've also got in the background a big increase in poverty in Britain with these austerity programme following the 2008 financial crisis, massive amounts of money being sucked out of the public services by the Conservative government and the coalition Lib Dem government. And what we see when you have massive increases in poverty, as we've got in Britain, people don't have enough money for food, don't have homes, can't afford water, this sort of thing. This is, as we saw in Germany in the 1930s, a fertile ground for the rise of fascism. And the government hasn't helped either, because they're also legitimising these sorts of attacks with attacks on the poor. There's been attacks on travellers here, and the unemployed through this austerity programme, and you're effectively seeing a kind of social Darwinism, a horrific kind of survival of the fittest mentality rising in Britain. And they want to get the poor fighting one another, and actually this is part of Conservative policy.
Well, different organisations and groups from foreign nationalities have called on London to take urgent action to review its response to such reports. What exactly does urgent action look like?
Well, for a start, they could stop this ridiculous austerity policy. I say ridiculous because it's actually a kind of class warfare. The powerful and the rich attacking the poor because they're afraid that the poor are a lot of numbers. We've heard the Jeremy Corbyn Labour Party mantra, which is actually quite a good one, which is for the many, not the few. And we also heard, didn't we, in Occupy Wall Street, that everything is being run for and by the 1%. That's certainly true here in Britain since 2010, and the Conservative government, David Cameron, first arrived. I mean, for people that don't live here, it's very difficult to see what's been happening, which is where people are incredibly vulnerable. They've got no money at all. They're disabled and poor, having their basic state support taken away. This leaves people in an appalling state. But actually, fundamentally, I think at the root of this is this Islamophobia and the attacks on the Islamic faith. I mean, back in July 2008, we had the Dewsbury MP, Shahid Malik, and this is just the same year as the financial crisis started. He was a victim of firebomb attacks, a hit-and-run attack reported by the Daily Mail, and he said the Muslims are the new Jews. And that's actually, I think, something that we still haven't quite learnt yet here in Britain, and the government hasn't taken on board, because if they realised that, then they would stop this Islamic phobia and they start to arrest some of these hate preachers who are trying to divide society here.
Thank you very much, sir. Investigative journalist Mr. Tony Gosling joining us from Bristol.